Fox 2! Aniket shouted, locking his heat-seeking Mica missile onto the J-20's exhaust plumes. He pressed the trigger. The missile leaped off the rail, a streak of white smoke scribbling a line across the blue sky. The J-20 pilot reacted late, dumping flares in a desperate flower of magnesium fire. But the missile ignored the decoys. It slammed into the right engine of the Chinese fighter. The explosion was not a fireball. At this altitude, it was a sudden, violent disassembly. The J-20 disintegrated, spinning away in pieces of burning composite and titanium. "Splash one," Aniket breathed, his heart hammering against his ribs, but there was no time to celebrate. The second J-20 had turned. It was behind him. "Cobra leader, 6 o'clock, Rao screamed. "He's on you, he's on you." Aniket slammed the throttle to idle and popped the air brakes. It was a desperate maneuver, the Cobra that the Russian Sukhois were famous for, but the Rafale could mimic it with its delta wings. The jet stalled, hanging in the air like a kite for a split second. The J-20, moving too fast to adjust, overshot him. It flew right past Aniket's canopy, close enough that he could see the helmet of the pilot inside. For a brief, surreal moment, the two men looked at each other. There was no hatred in that look, only a shared, terrifying recognition of their proximity. They were two specks of biological matter in aluminum tubes dancing on the edge of physics. Aniket slammed the throttle back to full afterburner. His engines caught the air, and the Rafale lurched forward, now chasing the J-20. "I have tone," Aniket whispered. He switched to guns. The 30mm cannon, a weapon from a bygone era, useless in modern BVR, beyond visual range. Combat, but king in a knife fight. He pulled the trigger. The airframe shuddered as the cannon unleashed a stream of high-explosive shells. He watched the tracers arc through the air, sowing a line of destruction across the J-20's broad wing. Smoke poured from the enemy jet. It rolled over, diving into the clouds below, trailing a black ribbon of oil and fire. "He's going down," Aniket said, his voice flat. He didn't feel triumph. He felt a deep, exhausting emptiness. "Rao, form up, let's go home." But the sky wasn't done with them. As they banked south, back toward the safety of the Indian border, a new sound filled Aniket's headset. It wasn't the radio. It was a high-pitched, warbling tone. "Radar lock," Rao shouted. "Surface to air. It's a HQ-9 battery. They've turned on the ground radars." "Chaff! Chaff!" Aniket punched the dispense button, releasing clouds of aluminum foil to confuse the radar. He dived, twisting the aircraft toward the cloud deck. "Get into the soup. They can't track us in the storm." The two jets plunged into the grey wall of the monsoon clouds. The visibility dropped to 0 instantly. The turbulence was violent, tossing the fighter like a toy. Rain lashed the canopy, freezing into ice. Aniket gripped the stick, his knuckles white. He was flying blind again in a storm over the Himalayas, with enemies behind him and mountains below him. This was the silent front, in its truest form. No sensors, no help, just the pilot and the void. "Rao, call out your altitude," Aniket said, checking his backup altimeter. 15,000. Rao's voice was shaky. "Sir, my engine temp is rising. I think I took shrapnel from the first bandit." "Stay with me, kid," Aniket said, his voice steady, channeling the calm he had felt when drinking that cocoa in the ready room. It seemed like a lifetime ago. "We are crossing the ridge. Keep your nose up. Trust the math. Trust the machine." They flew in silence. For 10 minutes, the longest minutes of Aniket's life. He imagined the jagged peaks of the Kanchenjunga hidden in the clouds, waiting to swat them out of the sky. He imagined the ground rushing up to meet them. Then the clouds broke. Below them lay the green, rain-washed plains of Bengal. The Teesta River wound through the jungle like a silver snake. They were through. "Visual on the runway," Aniket said, letting out a breath that shuddered in his chest. "Cobra flight, gear down." They touched down on the wet tarmac of Hasimara, the tires kicking up massive sprays of water. As they taxied to the hardened shelters, Aniket opened the canopy. The humid air hit him, thick with the smell of wet earth and aviation fuel. He climbed down the ladder, his legs feeling like jelly. The ground crew was cheering, but the sound was distant, muffled by the ringing in his ears. He walked past them, past the congratulations, past the debriefing officer who was running toward him with a clipboard.